Bill Gates is an incredible example of how to win your Saturn return. He learned to balance creativity with calculated risk during his fifth house Saturn return in the mid-1980s, and Saturn rewarded him for playing the long game. So we're now on to the fifth episode of the Saturn Returns Celebrity series, where I go through celebrity examples of Saturn returns in every single house of the zodiac so you can see how a Saturn return actually plays out. For astrological context, the Saturn return is a transit that everyone goes through between the ages of 27 to 30, and it's a time when Saturn asks you to grow up, take responsibility, and align more fully with your true self, even if you're being challenged. Bill Gates had his Saturn return in the sixth house between late 1984 to mid 1985, and the fifth house rules creativity, self-expression, and risk-taking. During this period, Gates made one of the biggest creative gambles in his career, the launch of Windows 1.0 in November 1985. The launch itself wasn't an immediate success, but the strategy behind it was to be a long-term play that would eventually come to dominate the entire market. At this time, he was also tightening his control over Microsoft and negotiating such that he was taking creative risks while staying firmly in control. This is in strong contrast to Steve Jobs, who went through his Saturn return with the launch of Macintosh in 1984. We talked about this in the third episode of the Celebrity Saturn Return series, but basically the launch of Macintosh was risky, it was flashy, and ultimately the product wasn't there, and it led to Steve Jobs being ousted from Apple. Bill Gates, by contrast, was not flashy at all, but Saturn rewarded that because Saturn wants you to build a strong, solid foundation. Bill Gates was ultimately much more conservative and pragmatic, and it built a strong foundation for Microsoft to dominate over the next decade. I think this is a really interesting example of a Saturn return because in many ways, Bill Gates is the most successful Saturn return that we've covered in the series so far. I think this ultimately has to do with Bill Gates' focus on hard work and strategic pragmatism with his creative risk-taking. Saturn doesn't care about a big splashy moment where you come out and you do your big show. Saturn wants you to put in the hard work every single day, behind the scenes, even when no one's watching. So check the playlist below for houses 1 through 4 and stay tuned for the rest of the 12 houses. And let me know in the comments, when are you going through your Saturn return?